Funny that it's Essendon player testing positive or something, isn't it?
Pull your finger out of your ass.
Jeez.
This is my first ever football jumper. My three votes, I should say. My three goats. My three votes for
Three
Charlie.
goats.
For oh, top of the world, mate.
What a time to be alive.
I look a bit like Nicol Bellic from GTA 4, I feel, with this.
That could get dangerous.
All right, Pressure Point fans, we have an absolute treat for you guys today. One of our favourite episodes and favourite guests so far, that's for sure. We've got 250 game player with the West Coast Eagles, premiership player and Norm Smith medalist in the same season, an all-time great of the club, now part of the Triple M Perth team, calling the great game. His name is Andrew Embley. Embers, welcome.
Yeah, g'day lads. Thanks for having me.
Anytime, mate. Absolute pleasure to have you on. We're talking about it a little bit off air, but how's life been for you during the pandemic? Obviously, you're in WA, a bit of a different situation to us in Melbourne. How's life treating you over there?
Yeah, we're, to be honest with you, really lucky over here in WA. We haven't lived through a pandemic whatsoever. It's a big bubble that we live in, and we've been able to get back to reality really, really quickly. So we certainly understand how difficult and challenging it's been for you guys and, you know, all your family and friends and fellow Victorians and as well as people living over in New South Wales at the moment. So our thoughts are certainly with you guys, and we're hoping that you're doing as well as you can. But yeah, life's pretty normal back here in WA, and we've got obviously a grand final coming up, which everyone is just so excited for, and we just can't wait for it. We've got as you know, an incredible stadium over here. We had the Dreamtime game early in the season, and you saw, how well that lit up in lights, and what a wonderful spectacle that was. So we're really confident we can put on a great grand final next week, and hopefully do the rest of the country really proud as well.
Yeah, for sure. As I said, we had a good taste of it this season from Optus Stadium, what the things that they put on with the Dreamtime game. So expecting nothing different this week, which is going to be great. I think that's the silver lining to Melbourne not having the granny. I think Optus Stadium will do a great job over there. So looking forward to that one, and grand final week coming up as well, which is going to be good fun. But mate, let's talk about you. Let's go back right to the start, to your early junior days. You were picked up at pick 57 in the 98 draft, and I guess how did it all start for you from between your junior career and then getting drafted in 98?
Yeah, so I grew up here in WA and played a variety of sports, but footy was the game that I just enjoyed the most and was really passionate about, and probably wasn't always the best player in my side, but when I speak to a few of my coaches, they did say that I was really committed at a younger age, and worked really hard on my craft, just trying to improve and get better, and played state schoolboys over here at I think I was under 15s, and had a reasonable carnival, and we ended up winning that carnival WA, and that was probably the first time where I realised that this dream of potentially playing AFL football could become a reality. I was, I always knew that I was sort of, like one of the better players, not the best player, but one of the better players in my side. But when you get to go and compete against some of the best 15-year-olds around the country and be able to sort of walk away from that carnival thinking, I can match it with them, then sort of gives you a bit of confidence. And I, from that, I made the AIS squad, and we went to Ireland, and there was guys like Mark McVeigh, he came to Ireland, Des Headland, who ended up going number one draft pick in the 98 draft that I went to. Cameron Ling was on that trip, and others as well. And so that sort of gave me a taste of, what it would be like to potentially be in a really good environment. After that, put myself into a draft, played some Teal Cup football, but didn't have a super year heading into my draft year. And I was sort of hopeful to get drafted, but certainly wasn't a guarantee or anything like that. So it did come really quickly for me. And when I found out that I was drafted, as you know, when you put yourself into the draft, you're keen to play anywhere. It doesn't really matter where I go. Being a WA boy, I'm happy to hop on a plane and go to Victoria and play for a Victorian club, because I just wanted to play AFL footy. So I Sorry, guys. I think someone just started calling me then. So,
Yeah.
so when I found out that West Coast were going to pick me up, and I was going to stay in WA, I was just over the moon.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute dream. I know a lot of WA boys that get drafted away from WA always have that going home factor. So for you to stay there and be able to live in WA and play out your career there would have been great. And I guess, did you have any other interest from clubs at that time, or was it, I mean, we sort of expected to maybe stay in WA, or did you have any other big Victorian clubs come after you as well, or have some conversations around draft time?
Yeah, a little bit of interest from other clubs. So in my 98 year, so there was a rule where clubs could only take one 17-year-old, and I was a 17-year-old. So I knew that if I was to be drafted in that year, I was only going to be one. As a 17-year-old, there was only going to be 16 clubs potentially that were going to take, a 17-year-old, and clubs didn't have to take a 17-year-old. So I was a really 1 in 16 chance. Now, we knew that Des Headland was more than likely going to go number 1 to Brisbane. And Justin Longmuir, there was lots of talk that he'd go number 2 to Fremantle. So I knew that if I was going to be picked up, it would be later on. But because Fremantle had taken their pick at number 2, and it was going to be Justin Longmuir, certainly wasn't going to be myself, then the chances of staying in Perth were really, really slim. So West Coast ended up taking me, I think, what'd you say, 56 or 57, I think?
57.
57. And they took about 3 or 4 guys, I think, before me in that draft, but they took me as their 17-year-old pick. So I think most clubs had probably used up their 17-year-old pick before that. So I was just stoked to get drafted, and obviously to a club here in WA. And I grew up barracking for the West Coast Eagles as well, so it was just a dream come true.
Yeah, well, you obviously made a pretty good impression in your first preseason as well. You managed to debut in round 1 of 1999, still at 17 years of age. So how was that experience? Everyone remembers their debut. So talk us through that game in round 1 of 99.
Yeah, really excited. Had a great pre-season, and it was Mick Moldhouse's last year at West Coast before he went to Collingwood, and got on with him really well. And Mick's a great coach, especially with young developing kids, and really gives you an opportunity. And if you put in the work and put in the time, then he rewards you. And had a really good summer and trained really hard, and then got the opportunity to play a couple of scratch matches before the start of the season, and didn't set the world on fire or anything, but was able to at least have an impact. And then obviously, on the eve of round 1, I remember, I think it would have been a few days before the first game of the season, we're playing Fremantle, and he came up to me and asked me if I was ready to play AFL footy. So I said, yeah, I definitely am. So he goes, yeah, we're gonna pick you this week, and just good luck with it. So it was it was a dream come true, and to be able to run out and make your debut in a derby was something really special for not just myself, but for the family as well.
Yeah, I can imagine it would have been a derby to debut in would have been an experience like no other. How was that first year as well in 99? I mean, adjusting to the AFL system can be tough for a lot of players in their first year. How did you cope with your first year in the system?
Yeah, pretty good. I think you get a sort of free year in football, and normally it's your first year or your second year, and so there's no real pressure on you or anything like that. You just living a dream. You're out there, you're playing football, and you're doing your absolute best to play as many games as you can. So I had a really fun first year. I think I played 9 games in my first year, and the rest were playing for Claremont in the Waffle, which was West Coast affiliated side that we had in that first year. So it was great. I hadn't played much league football as well before getting drafted. So even when I got dropped and was playing the Waffle, as a kid, all I wanted to do was play, the Swan Districts, which was my Waffle club, growing up in Bassendean. So I was playing Waffle footy for Claremont, and when I was good enough, I was playing for the West Coast Eagles. So it was a great first 12 months.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we touch on, the first 12 months, obviously fantastic, but a few years later in your career, a couple of grand finals came your way, which is obviously everybody's dream to get there. But we'll start with the 2005 grand final. We'll start in that one first. That was the first grand final you played. And what was that experience like in the build up? And obviously, the match itself didn't get the result the way you would have wanted. But what was the build up like to that grand final?
Yeah, it happened really quickly for us because we, as a group, when I started, we had, we're getting the tail end of all, the 92 and 94 premiership heroes, Jakovic and Matera and Kemp and all those players. And then suddenly they were retiring. This new group was coming through, and we made the finals in 2002, I think, from memory. I think Worcester's first year we made the finals, 2002, got beaten in elimination final. Played finals 2003, got beaten in elimination. 2004, beaten in elimination. So before you know it, 2005, we hadn't even won a final, and I think we were on top of the ladder, or at least in the top two. And we win our first final. We're into a prelim, and then suddenly we win a prelim, and we're into a grand final. So it wasn't like we were sort of knocking on the door before 2005. So it did really happen really fast. But the one thing about grand finals is, I don't believe that, you need to be in one to win one. You make a grand final, you never know if you're ever going to get back there. So we obviously had a really good year in 2005, and suddenly, we're into a grand final. We're a young side, and we come up against a Swans team who were, quite young as well. They might have had a little bit more experience than us, but they were very young and certainly hadn't been in that position as well. So it was I haven't really sort of thought too much about it, the game. But I know it was hard, it was tough, and the game could have gone either way. In fact, from memory, we were coming really hard late, and I used to always say that another 3 or 4 minutes, I reckon we would have won it. But another 3 or 4 minutes, no 6, we probably would have lost it. So, it was really disappointing to lose that grand final. But what it did do, it made us realise that we weren't good enough, and we had to improve, and we had to get better. And as a group, we had to become tighter and train really hard, because, just because you make a grand final one year ain't going to give you any right to be back there the following year.
Well, that's it. But I mean, you guys obviously did do that and improve the next year, because both Sydney and West Coast ended up in the same grand final almost the next year, but you guys got the win this time round. Obviously, being in a grand final the year before, you were pretty familiar with the build-up and things you needed to do to prepare yourself. Was there much difference between the 2005 and 2006 grand finals in terms of preparation?
From memory, I don't think so. Obviously, in 2006, we'd done it the year before, so you may be a little bit more prepared for it, but we're coming up against a side who are just as prepared, because obviously they went through the same experience the following year. So I just felt our timing was right in 2006. We just felt really confident without being arrogant or anything like that. And, remember the qualifying final when we played against the Swans and they knocked us off. And in that particular game, I didn't play, Curry didn't play, Ash Hansen didn't play. I just felt that the three of us could actually turn around a 1-point deficit. So I felt really confident heading into that game that, they knocked us off earlier, but we come off a really good win against Adelaide in the prelim, and we just felt really good with the way that we were playing our football and the way that everyone's feeling really good, like 100% sort of stuff. Didn't have any injury really concerns or anything like that. So it was just we just felt right. Our time was right.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, it was right, because you guys ended up getting the win. And I think a big moment in the game for me that I thought, and I think I've heard you say it before as well yourself, that Rowan Jones' contest with Leo Barry in the middle of the ground, Daniel Kerr kicks it inboard, and he may hit that contest and won the one-on-one, and it just really set the tone to finish the game. And I mean, obviously, it's pretty well known that you took a pretty big mark in the back line as well late in that game. But in the last few minutes, what's the feeling like? It was a 1-point win. It was obviously one of the closest grand finals we've had in a very long time. What was the feeling like with about 5 minutes to go?
Yeah, it's hard to sort of explain it, but when games are so tight like that, the thought of winning and losing, like you can't, it just doesn't come into the equation, because like you're just so focused on the contest and the contest after that, and you just can't afford to just switch off for a second, because that's the difference between winning the grand final and losing the grand final, and there's so many big moments that happen, and you just got to make sure that when it's your turn to go, that you just, you go and you impact and you have a crack, because that moment you're never going to get back again. So you spoke about Ryan Jones's contest in the middle of the ground, just small moments like that where he just had to go, he just had to make a contest, because, if we lose that ball in the middle of the ground, we're in all sorts. I mean, they're coming down and they're kicking a goal, and suddenly it's a totally different story that we're talking about. So we had players like Jonesy that just played their role throughout the day. I always talk about Darren Glass and the impact that he had. He plays on Barry Hall in that grand final. I think Barry Hall, from memory, won the Coleman in 2006 and kicked 5 goals in a prelim, Barry. And, we know that we have to stop Barry Hall, and Glassy goes to win, keeps Barry goalless, and we win by 1 point. So there's just so many different stories like that where guys just had to play their part, had to have your big moment and make sure that, you impacted that moment. And that's the difference probably between 05 and 06, where we just had 22 contributors in 06. And when it was their turn or our turn to stand up, we all had our moments, and they were really big ones too.
Yeah, those 2 grand finals, 05 and 06, I think for me personally, one of my favourite grand finals to watch, and the rivalry between the Swans and Eagles during that period is almost unrivaled in the modern era. It was great to watch. But something that fascinates me with grand final day is obviously the 100,000 crowd and the atmosphere and everything like that. As someone that's never experienced it or will never experience playing in front of 100,000 people, what is that like the noise and everything that goes with it?
Yeah, it's quite deafening. I do remember walking up the race and then coming out into the ground, and it is one of the loudest roars that you'll ever hear, and you've probably got to maybe a few moments to just be able to sort of soak it up and have a little bit of a look around, and yeah, in a way it's a great appreciation of the work that you and the team have done over a long period of time, and not just during your football career, but as a kid, because you're in the backyard, you're kicking the footy, you're having fun, but the reality is not many people get the opportunity to do that. So it is really rewarding for that split moment, but then you run through the banner and you quickly realise that you got a job to do, and that is to play your part, play your role, and help your team win a grand final. So it's a great experience. I love being at grand finals, and I think because I've obviously been on both ends at the end of the siren, win and loss, I do get a full appreciation of what both clubs are going through. But yeah, it's a roar and it's a noise that you just only really ever experience on grand final day, and obviously I got to experience it a couple of times as a player as well, which was just incredible.
It was incredible. And I mean, that was actually the first grand final I'd ever went to, was a 2006 one. So it was so special for me. I'd never seen the crowd roar like that. I'm a Richmond supporter myself, so it was a mutual game for me. I was loving it, and I couldn't believe the crowd. And you mentioned earlier that you had 22 contributors on the day, and and it wasn't exactly one player, but in saying that, your team was filled with absolute stars. You got yourself, Chris Judd, Ben Cousins, Dean Cox, Daniel Kerr, etc. What was it like playing with some of these champions of the games? Like, some of these guys are names that, are household names that we still talk about today.
Yeah, we had an incredible midfield group in particular. And when you've got just so many dominant players that just win their position, it's great to be a part of, because the easiest footy I ever played was when we're in the best side, because you've got players that win the footy and you got players that share the footy around, and you can just sort of take the game on, and you can be really proactive around the stoppages as well, because you've got the most dominant ruckman in the competition and the best midfield group. So more than likely you feel like you can actually dictate and be on the move. And then on the flip side of that, you got the opposition that are really reactive to what you're doing, which makes it, quite difficult and challenging for them. So it, as much as these guys were genuine superstars off the game, for us, they were guys that really prepared and set themselves up in pre-season and in training, and the way that they got the best out of themselves. So for us, it was no surprise that guys like Jared Kerr and Cousins, went out there and dominated the way they did on the weekends, because you only had to sort of see them, train in the pre-season and see some of the stuff that they did. So we batted so deep through our midfield group. You can throw in Braun and Fletcher and Tyson Stingline playing a negating role for us through there. So it was it was a privilege to be a part of such an incredible midfield group for that era.
Oh, 100%. I can only imagine what it would be like having that talent around you. And it must just build so much confidence within the group as well. And I mean, here on the podcast, we love feel-good footy stories. And I guess one that's been pretty prominent this week is that Ben Cousins was asked to return to or invited to the Brownlow again that night. As a former teammate of his, it must be pretty exciting to see him sort of, putting his life back on the right track and, heading in the right direction again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Cousins is a good mate of mine, and we constantly stay in touch. And I think this is probably the best stint that he's had for a long period of time. So we just love getting around him, and he's got a great story to tell. So if he can just stay on the right track and get himself right and get himself in a really good mental space, then he's just got a wonderful story to tell. And did a function with him a couple of weeks ago, and people just love him over in WA, as you can imagine. He's almost like the prodigal son, and he came back and he spoke really, really well. And we just at the end of it, people just go, we've missed you. So he's as I said, just got a great story to tell. Just got to stay on the right track, and if he does, then the world's his oyster, really.
Well, we're all hoping the best for him. I mean, we know the nickname, the Prince of Perth, gets flung around a bit, so it's no surprise to hear that he's very popular in WA. But obviously tonight, like I said, he got invited to the Brownlow. But speaking of important medals, I want to ask you, what was it like in the experience of winning the Norm Smith medal in 2006? It's obviously one of the most coveted awards in the game. You performed on the biggest stage of them all and were dubbed best on ground that day. What was that like? And at the end of the game, were you expecting that you might have been a sneaky chance at winning it, or were you pretty confident?
Yeah, it was. It was a great day because obviously you've won a grand final on the back of the disappointment that you had the year before, and I started a bit slow, but I certainly warmed into the game. And then, at the end of the game, you've played when you play well, when you play bad, when you've been okay. So I knew that I'd had a good game, but you're just so overwhelmed with the emotions of winning the grand final that the thought of, winning Norm Smith, or even that they're going to present the Norm Smith medal, is sort of not really you don't really sort of comprehend it at the time. And so it happens really, really quickly. Before you know it, suddenly you're called up on stage and you're sort of walking up there, and it's quite overwhelming. So it doesn't really sort of sink in until days or weeks later, when you have a bit of space and a bit of time by yourself and to reflect. And then, to be honest with you, once a year, especially around grand final time, having a chat with you guys and doing a function about grand finals, you do get to revisit and reflect on not just your own performance, but obviously the performance of the team and what we achieved.
And with the Norm Smith as well, and even more special this year, you get to present the Norm Smith to this year's winner. So how's that? The privilege of being able to do that as well. And it happens every year where previous Norm Smith medalists get to hand out the award, but to do it this year and in Perth as well, how special is that for you? Yeah,
it's an absolute honour. To have a grand final here in Perth, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's never going to happen again. So to be a part of it in a really small way and to present this year's Norm Smith medal is something that I'm extremely proud to do. It's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful week and a wonderful game. It's the grand final was sold out in about 9 minutes was just, we could have sold it over 3 times over. WA absolutely love their footy over here. And yes, there's a West Coast and there's a Fremantle element to it, but regardless of that, they just love it. And we saw a prelim a couple of weeks ago where it was sold out really, really quickly to 2 big Victorian clubs. And it's going to be great. We can't wait for it, and we can't wait to be there. And I'm obviously very honoured and really looking forward to the opportunity to present a Norm Smith medal and welcome someone to the Norm Smith Club.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, be a great day, great honour doing that, and really looking forward to seeing the grand final this week as well, especially in Perth and having good weather there, which we definitely can't do every year down here. Yeah. So it's going to be a great spectacle. So looking forward to that. All right, mate. Let's move on to your current days, and you're big into your cooking and your restaurants as well. How's that all going for you? And give us an update on your last few years out of the AFL system.
Yeah, so when I was playing, Woosh was always big on the guys doing things outside of footy. So I love my cooking, and I sort of did an apprenticeship when I was playing and worked in restaurants. And Dean Cox and I, we had a restaurant for about 4 or 5 years. So we've been in the hospitality game. We're no longer in it. Dean's over in Sydney at the moment, assistant coach of the Swans. And so I sort of went down a different path. But I'm in the seafood game over here in Perth and work for Catalano Seafood, so big seafood family. And I also work for Triple M over here as well. So I do rush hour WA with Lockie Reed and employed by Triple M to call the footy as well. So we call all the West Coast Freo games here in Perth, and we're calling the grand final this year as well, which is going to be really exciting. We've got Dennis Committee calling it for us. And I think it's going to be Dennis's last ever game to call too. So a great privilege. I've been working with Den for the last sort of 3 or 4 years for Triple M over here. So it's been great to be able to work with arguably one of the greatest callers of all time. So 3 young kids and never a dull moment. So it's been great. And whilst, the first sort of couple of years out of the system is a really, can be a daunting transition and can be quite challenging. And certainly it was. It's, life's really great now. And I love my job and love my life. And I love my footy too still.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. Just going back to the Triple M team, how is that experience? I know you mentioned you're working with Dennis Committee and people like that, but did you find it easy to transition into the media and calling the game as well? Like I know a lot of players go down that path, but how was it for you transitioning into there and calling the game?
Yeah, it took me probably a little bit just to sort of get a hang of it. Obviously, you know the footy, the game really well, but as you know, with special comments or talking, you just got to be really sharp with what you have to say and then get in and get out sort of stuff. So it's just that timing bits of it. I felt like I picked it up well. I've been doing it for a while now, so I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking football. I love the game still. I love watching it and everything about it. So, in fact, I probably watch more football now than what I did when I played. So, I love working with the guys at Triple M, and we're really excited about calling the grand final in a week's time as well. It'll be a great experience for all of us.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it as well. I can't wait for next week. It can't come soon enough. But go back a little bit. I know in the 90s, it was pretty well known that over in the States, there was a bit of a beef between the East and West Coast in terms of hip hop and stuff like that. But I think the most important West Coast rap that people forget about is the rap you did for the 10-year anniversary celebrations with Triple M. Marcus and I were digging into that the other day and having a bit of a watch of that. What was that a stitch up, or was that your idea? What was the thought? What went behind that? Because that was we thought that was quite good.
I had a bit of fun with that. That was just a bit of a piss take. But it started off one day. I was having a couple of coldies and just started, mucking around with a few lyrics and stuff like that, and writing a couple of things down. And then before I knew it, it sort of grew and grew. And then I just go, you know what? Why don't I just put something together? And I think the 10-year reunion was coming up, and so I had a bit of fun with it and just tried to. I think I mentioned every single person's name, and somehow it was a mumble and it was jumble. It was all over the place, but we somehow got it together. And then on our 10-year reunion, I got some guys to put the music together for us and put some vision together for us, and then I presented it to all the lads, and we had a good laugh about it, and it was a bit of fun. So listen, something that was a bit silly, but I think it's come across all right, and it's out there now. And every time the kids get on YouTube, they get it and they play it and they sing it, and it's actually driving us all mad at the moment. So it's probably not the smartest thing that I've ever done.
Well, before we started recording, we actually, I was having a look through the comment section. I did see your daughter comment on it, and she said, "This is great, Dad. A little bit embarrassing, but great." We were actually quite impressed. We were quite impressed with how you did work every player's name into it, and I never thought you could rap about a grand final and actually make it rhyme. So credit where credit's due there. You did a great job with all that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks.
What we do with all our guests, we run a little segment called the pressure cooker just before we wrap up. So we'll ask a few quick fire questions. Quinn will run the sting and we'll get into it. All righty. Who is your tip for the flag?
Melbourne.
All right. And then who's your tip for tonight's Brownlow medal?
I'm leaning towards Ollie Wines. I just reckon there's not enough guys in that Port Adelaide team to pinch votes off into the midfield.
Yep. That's my pick as well. That's exactly why I'm going for him. Who's your favourite current day player?
Probably I'd say Dusty or Nick Nat.
Yeah, love that one. Loved that one a lot. And then the last one, short and sharp. Who do you think will be you'll be presenting the Norm Smith medal to on next Saturday?
Yeah, really tough question, that one. But if I say Melbourne, then I reckon I might be doing it to Christian Petrarca.
Yeah, I think we're both on the same page with that. He's a ball in the midfield and he can kick goals, which sort of all plays hand in hand. So I agree with that one.
He's an absolute star. He's a gun, but I reckon he can even go to another level, and I reckon it could be next Saturday as well, and just show the country, how good he is. And Dusty's been able to do incredible things over the last 3 or 4 years. No one's ever going to get to that. But I reckon if there's any player in the comp, it's probably a Bontempelli or a Christian Petrarca that can almost get to that level. And I'd love to see one of those big stars elevate themselves on grand final day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Petrarca's set up for this. You can just see it. He's made for finals and big games like this. So I think he'll be my tip as well. But that's pretty much all we've got for this episode, Embers. It's been great, and it's been great having you on, and we really appreciate your time. So thanks again, and all the best this week with the grand final build-up and the big day as well next week.
Yeah, good on you, boys, and all the best over there in Victoria too. Hopefully things settle down for you really soon. So, thanks very much for having us, and look forward to getting back to the MCG next year in front of 100,000 for the grand final.
Absolutely. That's fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Embers.
Cheers, Embers.
Good on you, boys. Take care. All the best.
Bye-bye.
See you, mate.
Cheers.